We are live. We are live. Welcome to the most unpopular college football YouTube channel that there is. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and your friends. If you want to support this college football rebel outpost with a donation, hit the $ where you make a comment, and I'll get to your super chat as quick as I possibly can. Everybody, and I mean everybody, even those Hawkeyes, even those Badgers, even those Tar Heels are welcome into the studio that sits on the corner, the very corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to be a legend with your comments in the chat room and with your phone calls later in the show. And the lines are going to open when we have the delivery of the new college football rankings. It's going to be halftime of this basketball game that's going on in ESPN. And it looks like they're on commercial right now. It looked like there was 8 or 7 minutes left to go in the half. So I don't think we are going to start this real-time reactions to the new college football playoff rankings. We're not going to start them at 8 o'clock Eastern time. It's going to be a little later than that. So let's talk college football. Before we start throwing the elbows on the rankings, let's talk some college football. Skull Ducky is in the house. Skull Ducky, he's got nothing to worry about. He's got nothing to worry about tonight. The Oregon Ducks are going to be number one in the country. Dylan Gabriel is up for a bunch of awards. The Ducks are sitting pretty. They're just sitting and waiting, trying to find out who's going to be their Big Ten championship game opponent. It's probably going to be the Buckeyes if they are successful for the first time in 4 years to defeat the team up north, those Michigan Wolverines. Charlie Atwood. Penn State is looking real fine, real good. They're probably going to be what? Number 4 tonight? Again? Correct? Number 4 behind the Buckeyes, the Longhorns, and the Ducks. They're looking to be slotted in probably as the number 6 seed. The worst, the lowest that the Nittany Lions are going to be slotted in is number 7. You know, the loser of the Big Ten championship game, maybe the loser of the SEC championship game gets slotted in the number 6 if it is the Longhorns, if they beat the Aggies, and then they lose to Georgia in the championship game. So maybe Penn State is slotted in at 7. But I think they're going to be slotted in at 6. And tonight, they're probably going to be the 4th seed. Let me know, Charlie Atwood or the other Nittany Lions in the house. Let me know how wrong I got it. Kirk Bender is in the house. Nathan Campbell, Steele Austin. Holy smokes. Jimmy Austin is here. Jimmy is in the house. Matt Neeson. The Cyclones. How far back are they going to be of Boise State? How far back is the Sun Devils going to be of Boise State? That's going to be the number one thing we're all looking at tonight when the rankings come out. What is the gap between the Boise State Broncos and the Arizona State Sun Devils and the other Big 12 teams that could make the Big 12 championship game? What is the gap between Boise State, the Big 12, and then Tulane? We're going to find out tonight. James Foster talking about Sun Devils. Holy smokes. James Foster is in the house. Larry Andrick, Mr. Mountaineer. Hi, Greg. Do you think my Mountaineers can win Saturday? Absolutely. Absolutely. Tumasta is in the house. Holy smokes. Doubleheader. Stephen Vitt is in the house. Greg, I'm going to need you to pick the Huskies to cover this week. Jimmy, are you sure? Are you sure? Because this week, week 13, for only the second time all year, the fat guy from Minnesota had a winning record against the spread. Boom, baby. 6-3. Greg the Believer. Greg the Goal. It's been this kind of week and it's only Tuesday night. That's one of the reasons why this is the most unpopular show in all of college football YouTube. I'm going to give you the other reason here in a little bit. Holy smokes. Let's go. PATC, real-time reactions to the college football rankings. 6 minutes ago in the first half of this basketball game. A lot of drama tonight, baby. A lot of drama. great, the GOAT. I can't believe I had a winning week. Still the mayor of Loserville City, 59-76. But at least we had one decent week for the season. Bo Weevil, go Clemson. Can't forget about the Clemson Tigers. In my opinion, all Clemson needs is one more bit of chaos. Just one more. Clemson beats the Gamecocks. Clemson gets one more little bitty chaos. And Clemson is going to slide in to the number 11th or number 10th seed in the college football playoffs. Clemson going on the road, maybe going up north, but if they're going to be in the playoffs, they got to beat the Gamecocks. You got to start with the Gamecocks, Bo Weevil. Bob Swanger. Georgia, the Bulldog is here. Richard Jones, MBM, Mr. Cowboy. How many spots does Bama fall after getting manhandled? They better be around 14, 15, or 16. Or a little bit lower. They better not be around that 12th spot, or I'm going to go nuclear. I did not go nuclear last week. I thought the committee did a good job. I was satisfied. Maybe I was the only one. But if they put Bama anywhere close to number 12, Daniel Montcaster, the Hoosiers, number 1. I think Indiana's going to be number 9, number 10. They are in a very good spot. It went pretty good last week. Not so much a competitive loss, but carnage all over the place. And so Indiana just got to beat the lowly Purdue Boilermakers. And I'm just going to say this. I know there has been recent reports that in fact, I'll post it. In fact, I post this early this morning. On 3, Knuckles says, speaking with multiple sources on Sunday, Walters is trending to return for the 2025 season. I am going to go ahead and bet against that. I'm going to go ahead and put the PATC chips in the middle of the table and say Walters does not survive after the Indiana game. Sometime Saturday night, sometime Sunday, sometime Monday morning, I think he's the next head coach in the Power 4 conference to lose his job. I'm not saying I know more than Mr. Knuckles or the public. I'm just... There has been... This is college football's peek around the corner, so I have to do the best I can to give you the peek around the corner. We gave you the Mac Brown. We thought he was going to be the first to go. We took the L, then we took the L back. It became a W today. Although we took the L for taking an early L. I think Mr. Walters' days are numbered. And it may have to do with more than, it may have to do with multiple things going on. So we are going to follow the Purdue head coach situation throughout the weekend. But right now, I'm going to go ahead and put my chips in the middle of the table and say he does not survive. So I'm going against the grain of this public report. I'm not exactly going against the grain when it comes to the chatter behind the curtain. And if we need to, we'll go more into that after this coming up weekend. Michael Wooten is in the house. Mr. Mountaineer Jeff Morgan is here. Nick Kelso is here. Rod Nix. Chief fan, Neil Brown of UMass. I don't think so. I'm sorry, Chief fan. I don't have any smoke on Neil Brown. None. Zero. I have a little bit on Walters, but I had some on Mac Brown. We have nothing on Neil Brown. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen. It means that as of right now, I don't have the information. Heartbreak 25. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of the Penn State Nittany Lions. Holy smokes. Bam is not in the top 12. I don't want them near the top 12. Don't want them near somebody. Clemson ahead of Tennessee would be criminal. Not ahead of Tennessee. No, that's not going to happen. No. Now, if Tennessee loses to Vanderbilt, that would be the type of chaos that Clemson would need to slip into the playoffs. Ryan Willie, holy smokes, on Wisconsin. Expedition Greg is in the house. PJ Fleck to North Carolina. We will talk a little bit more about that as well this evening. No, it's not imminent. No, we are not reporting that. Yes, we are reporting that PJ Fleck is a serious candidate for the North Carolina head coach position. I'm going to get more into that in a little bit. Gold Black 45 is in the house. MBM, holy smokes. Thank you so much for your incredible generosity. My goodness. Once again, MBM has been so kind, Mr. Oklahoma State Cowboy, to gift people in the PATC family a membership of our channel. MBM, thank you so much. Thank you so much for those 10 gifted membership. Matt Higgins, Anthony Zappin, Marquis Stiggers, Jason Ritchie, John Menser, David Sabinosh, Chief Fan, Larry M., Joaquin Morales, and Wayne Russell. You are hereby, all of you are hereby knighted cloak and dagger. Hopefully we'll be able to pop some new membership-only episodes in the coming days. We're sitting on a bunch of stuff, but that is the episodes for members only that we put in a little bit of information, a little bit of nuggets in there that we go on live with later on. Hopefully we can produce a few more membership-only episodes here pretty soon. We did produce a episode for everybody to watch, PATC episode 412, 412 yesterday, while we did Dancing in the Dark, Bruce Springsteen rendition of what is going on in SEC ESPN country. I hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't watched it, please go watch it. For the SEC fans out there, it was a kind little jab, completely innocent, kind little jab. By the way, those who are most angry with me tonight on Tuesday, November 26th, is the Golden Gopher fans. So SEC, Big 12, ACC, you're gonna have to get in the back of the line, because the Golden Gopher fans are the ones that are most angry with me tonight. I will explain. John Hoke is in the house. Tyler Brown is in the house. Let's see. That's about it. If PJ Fleck goes to North Carolina, does this affect realignment at all? No, it won't. But, okay, here's the deal. Thank you so much, MBM. I do appreciate it very much. So we got 2 minutes and 30 seconds to go in the half. Let me show what I reported earlier today. On our first live show, we talked about Mac Brown, and we had the North Carolina hot board 1.0. On the top, and we talked about this on our previous live show earlier today, number 1 is John Summerall. Number 2 is Glenn Schumann. We talked about the John Summerall candidacy. There is a Kentucky red flag wrapped around that candidacy. And I got to tell you, after our live show, after I talked to more and more people, I don't think there's all the reasons in the world why North Carolina would be going after one of the top 2 targets, Mr. Summerall, the head coach of Tulane, who was the head coach of Troy. But I don't think it's being captured enough out there on where Mr. Summerall, where his trajectory is going to go. At least among the chatter behind the curtain. I don't think that is being captured by... I haven't read it. I have perused here 2 hours ago, little less than 2 hours ago, I perused the North Carolina message boards, 247. They're not really talking about the Kentucky angle at all. But the chatter behind the curtain is. There are people expecting that when that Kentucky job gets open, Summerall is going to replace Coach Stoops. There is chatter behind the curtain that once Kirk Ferentz leaves Iowa, that Stoops would go to Iowa. But the real smoke is Summerall to Kentucky. So if Summerall would go to North Carolina, there's going to have to be a big buyout as part of the agreement where Summerall, who's ever going to be the future employer of John Summerall, be it Kentucky, they're going to have to spend the big bucks to get Summerall out of North Carolina into Kentucky. So that can that match even occur? I don't know. Having said that, nobody is going to be shocked. Nobody is going to be shocked if Summerall becomes the new head coach of North Carolina. But there is a Kentucky red flag around his candidacy. PJ Fleck. I reported the following. At 1:02 p.m. Central Time. Yes, as we reported on college football's PATC live show earlier today, Sources have told us PJ Fleck is a serious, viable candidate for North Carolina's head coach vacancy. More to come. I stand by that reporting 1,000%. I have been crushed somewhat by some in Gopher country. But there is a bunch of them that know that we did that PJ Fleck, the Minnesota story on December 25th, 2016, 216 hours before it happened, when we had 220 hours after we reported it, when we had a 216-hour countdown clock. That was part of the Los Angeles Times story. People know that we had the PJ Fleck UCLA. Our reporting was 100% accurate. Even before Chip Kelly left, we reported at Peek Around the Corner that PJ Fleck would be the number one target, or right there as the number one target. Mutual interest between UCLA and PJ Fleck. We absolutely nailed that story. PJ Fleck did not go to UCLA. UCLA did not have the money. The question is, does North Carolina have the money? Will they have the money? And will the target list go down to PJ Fleck? These are questions I do not have the answers for. Although when it comes to revenue, we said that North Carolina is about to bet on themselves. They've got some things in the hopper. We're not going to go down that rabbit hole today. I've been talking about that for the last month. But anyways, put that aside. Why is PJ Fleck a candidate for the North Carolina job? People in the industry knows that PJ Fleck has been rowing the boat against heavy waterfall and has been doing a spectacular job at Minnesota. An historic, modern, beautiful job at Minnesota. His agent has been very active, trying to find a possible new location for PJ Fleck. Not to get into too deep of the weeds, there are certain locations that PJ Fleck and his family would love to live. Minneapolis, or the ring around Minneapolis, was one of those places. The city of Los Angeles was another one of those places. Chapel Hill is another one of those places. And I'm not going to go any further than that. So, North Carolina, Chapel Hill is what the local Gopher media would tell you. It would check the box for PJ Fleck, his wife, and family. Having said that, there are, going from the Big Ten to the ACC, it's a step down. It is when it comes to media money. But North Carolina's probably going to be spending as much money on their football program as Minnesota. Because Minnesota's got other things they're going to put their money into. North Carolina's going to put their money into the basketball program. But when it comes down to it, 2 or 3 years from now, North Carolina will be investing as much as Minnesota. Better recruiting grounds. North Carolina is looked at as a spot that somebody who wants to try their hand at coaching at a place that it's easier to recruit than Minnesota, which is probably the hardest in power conference play. Now, the Gopher fans are, a lot of them are pretty mad at me because I put that out. And it's gotten a lot of traction. We did not put that out for the purposes of whatever. We put that out because we know without a shadow of a doubt that the agent of PJ Fleck, the agency of PJ Fleck, has made it known. Now, if you want to go down the road that it's just another leverage play from the agent of PJ Fleck to Minnesota to get another extension, whatever, you go ahead. I don't believe that's the case. Although it might work as a leverage play, just like the UCLA situation, but I don't think that's what this is. PJ Fleck and Bubba Cunningham, there is a relationship. There was a big relationship there is one between PJ Fleck and Mac Brown. There has been reports that from WRAL, from one reporter, he had a source telling him this is all going to be bottled up and done by Sunday. Sunday. I don't know. I cannot confirm nor deny. I have no idea if it's going to happen that quick. I would doubt it. But then again, if there was phone calls made, if there were inquiries, if Mac Brown knew who the new head coach was going to be, and if he has a close relationship with PJ Fleck, which he does, Bubba Cunningham, which he does with PJ Fleck, you can see how people is starting to think, well, maybe it's PJ Fleck. At this time, on November 26th, in the evening, I have no more to tell you. I have no idea if it's going to be PJ Fleck, other than to say I am very comfortable in saying he's a serious candidate. I'm trying to think if there's anything more that I can share at this time. The buyout for PJ Fleck is not an issue for North Carolina if they were to go in that direction. So that's about it. That's about it. We shall see. We know that Pete Thamel. We know that Pete Thamel. We know that Pete Thamel said the following, if I can find it. If you listen, I'm not even going to put it up, but this is what Pete Thamel said. I'd expect head coaches, some head coaches. I should have put the word some. My apologies. I did not mean to get the phrasing wrong. I did get it wrong. Pete Thamel said, if you listen to this report, go to Pete Thamel's Twitter page. He said, I expect some head coaches from the Big Ten and the SEC to kick the tires on the job. Big Ten and the SEC. If you go down that list, so Pete Thamel knows more than he could probably say right now. If you go down that list, what coaches in the Big Ten and the SEC would be willing to look to change their job in the Power 2 and go take the North Carolina job? What coaches would be willing to do that and would have enough interest from North Carolina to be on their list? You go down that list, man. That the names that you come up with are what? Maybe one or maybe two names. Honestly, look at it. Look at the Big Ten coaches and the SEC coaches. PJ Fleck's one of them. So that was, in my opinion only, I do not know, but in that, I think Pete Thamel's report is basically telling you PJ Fleck and his agent are going to kick the tires, and we know that they are here at Peek Around the Corner. So I'm in trouble with the Gopher fans once again. I'm in trouble. SMU renews Lashley contract. Absolutely. This dog loves Chapel Hill. Okay, here we go. Here we go. To see the college football playoff rankings. Here we go. What do you think, guys? What do you think? We're going to open up the phone lines. We're going to open up the phone lines right after the rankings are announced. I'm going to give you my opinion. I'm going to give you my opinion. I'm going to give you my opinion. Now, last Tuesday, I agreed with the committee. There was no nuclear explosion. The week before, I had real issues. Real issues. Jamie Thornton, man, Memphis making my girds worse, holding on to beat Michigan State. Mary wanted to make sure she said Happy Turkey Day to you and the little general. Thank you, Mary, so much. Thank you, Jamie. Appreciate it. By the way, I do want to give a special shout out. Thank you, Jamie and Mary, for reminding this guy. I want to thank the little general for letting us have this live show tonight. We had some family stuff going on. A little bit of an emergency. Everybody's okay. Mom's okay, everybody. But Maria Hernandez Garcia Flugar, she did not give me the official okay until about 20 minutes before we went live. But thank you, Maria. You put up with a lot of stuff. Thank you so much for your support of this channel. Thank you. Okay, we got it here. Top 25. Top 25. They're going to do the playoff explainer. They're doing the playoff explainer once again. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Notre Dame. Where is Notre Dame going to be ranked? Where is Notre Dame going to be ranked? Right behind Penn State. Quite possibly. Again, when the rankings are released, here we go. Number 25, Colorado. Boy, they dropped 9 spots. Number 24, Kansas State. Number 23, the Fighting Illini, Illinois. Number 22, UNLV. Good news for Boise State. Good news for the Broncos. Number 21, Missouri. Number 20, Texas A&M. So they only fell 5 spots. Okay. All right. I see where this is going. I see where this is going. Holy smokes. Number 19, BYU. Number 18, Iowa State. So Iowa State's looking to be about 7 spots behind Boise State. 7 or 6 spots behind Boise State. Number 17, Tulane. Tulane is ahead of Iowa State and BYU. Boise State, you better watch your backside. 16, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness! Arizona State! Wow! Not where the Sun Devils expect. 15 Gamecocks! Oh boy! Woo! It better be Alabama next. If it's not Alabama next, I'm going nuclear. I'm going nuclear. Oh my God. 14 Ole Miss. Oh boy. But Bama was unbelievably bad. What? Come on, man. Come on. Get out of here with this stuff. Are you serious? They didn't even score a touchdown last week. Come on. Number 12, Clemson. Okay. Clemson, and now I agree with that because they have played great football. The eye test the last 6 or 7 weeks, if they beat South Carolina. But that gives South Carolina the opportunity. No, South Carolina is the next SEC team. Boise State's going to be 11. Right? This is why I don't see it. I don't see Arizona State catching Boise State if Boise State runs the table. Right? Boise State's 11. So the Big 12 wants Boise State to lose. They have Tulane replace them. And then the Big 12 champion can get the 4th seed and a bye. I don't think anyone is passing Boise State, but it's going to be close. It's going to be close, but my goodness. Clemson and South Carolina is a playoff game if there is some chaos in the last week of the regular season. The Gamecocks have an opportunity to make the playoffs. Number 10, Indiana, which is what we expected. Indiana is in if they beat Purdue, and they're going to blow the doors off the Boilermakers. Number 9 is SMU. I think SMU is definitely in. Even if they lose the ACC championship game, if they replace, if the committee knocks out SMU, if they lose to Miami and replace it with Alabama, I will go nuclear. But I don't have to tonight. I do not have to tonight. SMU is number 9. Number 8 should be Miami, right? No, Tennessee. Tennessee. That game against Vanderbilt. Again, South Carolina, Clemson winner will be looking for Tennessee to screw up or Indiana to screw up. Or Notre Dame to lose to USC. They need chaos. Clemson and South Carolina, the winner needs chaos. Number 7, Georgia. Number 7 is Georgia. Beat UTEP and move up 3 spots. That's what Tennessee did. Now there was carnage. There was carnage. Number 6, Miami. There we go. Miami's getting some love here. Miami is getting some love. They're getting more love than SMU. This makes it so Miami, if they would lose in the ACC championship game, they're definitely getting that at the at-large bid. The question is SMU going to get the at-large bid if they lose in the ACC championship game? I think they should, but they're number 9. Number 5, Notre Dame. And they've got the USC Trojans for their final regular season game at the Coliseum. Number 4 should be Penn State. They beat the mighty Gophers by 1. And another heartbreaking loss for the Golden Gophers. Number 4 is Penn State. I'm assuming number 3 is Texas, Ohio State, and number 1, Oregon. Okay, let me give you my thoughts. I am it does not matter that Ole Miss and Alabama are ahead of South Carolina. Now, truthfully, if you go back, I'm going to show you guys something here. Hold on, everybody. Hold on. South Carolina lost to Alabama and Mississippi. South Carolina lost to Alabama and Mississippi. And the head-to-head is one of those buckets, one of those lanes where you have to look at. So having South Carolina in back of Ole Miss and Alabama, okay, I'm good with that. But for the last 5 weeks, South Carolina has beaten Oklahoma, which just thumped Alabama. South Carolina defeated Texas A&M 44-20. South Carolina drubbed Vanderbilt. South Carolina beat Missouri. And if South Carolina beats Clemson, the way that Ole Miss has looked, soft as a baby's bottom, the way that Alabama has looked, absolutely looked horrific against Vanderbilt and Oklahoma. That game last week was embarrassing, having 3 losses. I believe, and I think it's correct, that if South Carolina defeats Clemson, and there is a little bit of chaos with Indiana losing to Purdue, which I don't think is going to happen, but it's chaos. If SMU loses, if Tennessee loses to Vanderbilt, something happens in front of them. I believe that South Carolina will make the playoffs if they beat Clemson. I believe Clemson will make the playoffs if they beat South Carolina and there's something happening in front of them. Alabama being 13 and Ole Miss being 14, their only shots is to have two big pieces of chaos happening. They need a miracle. They absolutely need a miracle. I don't think they're going to get it. Clemson and South Carolina need a miracle. There may be one, but I don't think there's going to be two. So I think Alabama, even being 13 and 14, Alabama and Ole Miss, I think they are out. Now, the other question. So that South Carolina Clemson piece, I think that is a play-in game if there's chaos. One bit of chaos ahead of them. The other piece is the Big 12 versus Boise State. I think the Big 12 has that advantage over Tulane. I think if any of those Big 12 teams, I think the Big 12 is going to be ahead of Tulane. I think the Big 12 champion is going to make it. I think Tulane's only chance is to bounce ahead of Boise State if Boise State loses. But if Boise State runs the table, Boise State is at 11. Arizona State is at 16. I think Boise State's going to hang on. UNLV is a ranked team. UNLV most likely is going to be 10-2 in the Mountain West Conference Championship game. So Boise State runs the table. I think they're going to get that fourth spot, and the Big 12 champion is going to most likely get the 12th spot. Having said that, if UNLV defeats Boise State, we are going to be having a conversation about UNLV versus Tulane. That is going to be a conversation we're going to be having. Because UNLV is going to have a couple of victories against Big 12 teams, a victory over Boise State if they should do it in the Mountain West Conference Championship. I am going to open up the phone lines. Let's hear it. What are your thoughts on the new college football playoff rankings being released? 763-260-1333. Heather Dinich is talking, and she's probably talking about Alabama and Ole Miss, but I think they are, in essence, behind Clemson and South Carolina. The winner of that game, I think, is ahead of Ole Miss and Alabama to stay. Let me know how wrong I got it once again. The floor is yours. Give us a call. 763-260-1333. Rod Nix, if the Big 12 is left out, it'll be Brett Yormark that goes nuclear instead of Greg the Gold. True, but I don't think the Big 12 is going to get left out. I mean, you've got Arizona State, Iowa State, do-si-doing around Tulane, right? You've got Iowa State Cyclones are 18. Tulane is 17. Arizona State is 16. You get an Iowa State, Arizona State Big 12 championship game. They both win next week. Iowa State and Arizona State, and they go to the Big 12. The winner of that Big 12 championship game is going to stay ahead of Tulane. If you have BYU versus Iowa State, BYU versus Arizona, the winner of the Big 12 is going to stay ahead of Tulane. The nightmare scenario of no Big 12 team in the playoffs, I think, is over once Army got boat raced. I don't think a combination of Boise State and Tulane, two G5 champions, can keep the Big 12 out. I don't see it anymore. It's not doable on paper, in my opinion. The scenario of the Big 12 champion getting the 12th seed, I think, is very much alive, and I think it's the chalk. And I think it's been the chalk here. I think it's the chalk. Let me know how wrong I got it. 763-260-1333. 763-260-1333. Give me a call. The floor is wide open. A&M is going to have to win the SEC championship game. In my opinion, Jamie, they've got 3 losses. They just lost to Auburn. If they beat Texas, and of course beat Georgia in the SEC championship game, Texas A&M is the SEC champion. They're going to probably get a top 4 seed, and it's going to knock out one of the at-large bids. None of the other conferences want Texas A&M to win the SEC. But if Texas A&M loses to Texas or loses to Georgia with their 4th loss, Texas A&M, I don't think, can make it as an at-large bid, in my opinion.
Call from
Rick, the floor is yours. Let me know what you think about this new college football playoff rankings.
Well, I was just wondering if you haven't. I know you had the headset on, so you might have missed.
Yeah, I can't hear what they're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, Heather Dinich brought up a proposal, and it's kind of extreme, but it could still play out, where one of the 2 teams in the Big 12 championship game was a 3-loss team.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. What was that? I'm sorry. I'm getting distracted by something. Go ahead. One more time.
Heather Dinich's proposal, hypothetical, was that if one of the 2 teams that is playing in the Big 12 championship game goes in as a 3-loss team and plays the other Big 12 team that's a 2-loss team. And the 3-loss team, whoever it might be, beats that Big 12 2-loss team and is the champion of the Big 12 with 3 losses.
Yeah.
And then Tulane runs the table without losing and becomes conference champ with 2 losses.
Yeah, I can see. Okay. Hold on, everybody. Hold on. What the heck's going on here? Okay. In theory, I do agree with that because, but not so much in practice. Hold on. I'm calling a timeout here. Timeout. You got a 2-loss Iowa State team that is 1 notch in back of Tulane. You got an Arizona State is a 9-2 team who is 1 notch ahead of Tulane. You got a BYU that's a 2-loss team who is 2 spots behind Tulane. What you're saying is you need a 3-loss Big 12 team to beat a 2-loss Big 12 team in the championship game for Tulane to get in. And in theory, I think that's correct. But for that to happen, you need a lot of carnage in this last week of the Big 12 regular season.
Well, I don't think so, because you've got Farmageddon. Kansas State can easily beat Iowa State.
Okay,
What's the next game?
you got Arizona State playing Arizona, and they
Yeah,
are
the territorial cup.
yeah, okay, but they're gonna be, I get it. In theory, they could lose to Arizona, but okay, who does BYU play? They play Houston. So
Where do they play at?
I think they play at home. Let's see here. They play at home. So BYU would be that 2-loss team probably.
Yes.
Arizona State would need to lose to Arizona. Iowa State would need to lose. So that's that's the only thing okay. So those Arizona State, BYU, Iowa State, you need 2 of those 3 teams to lose. And then any team can go ahead and beat whatever team that didn't lose. So that's what you would need. You would need you would need 2 of the following: Arizona State losing to Arizona, BYU losing to Houston, and Iowa State losing to Kansas State. 2 of those 3 things happen, and then a 3-loss team beats the 2-loss team. In theory, I would agree that Tulane would, if they run the table, finish ahead of that. I think Henry Dinich is correct on the theory. Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, that's okay. I knew you had your headphones on. You might not have heard it.
Yeah.
And it is rather extreme, but this has been an extreme season.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, it has. Yes, it has.
All right. Love the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Great call. Thank you for bringing that up, man. Great call. Excellent. So I stand corrected. I said earlier that the nightmare scenario of the Big 12, no school making the playoffs, I said that was over once Army got boat race. Rick brought up a good Heather Dinich's comments, and I stand corrected. There is a nightmare scenario still out there for the Big 12. It's just, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, I can see Iowa State, God bless them. I'm rooting for the Cyclones. I think, they could lose, obviously. Kansas State. Houston's been playing better. I don't see the Sun Devils losing to Arizona. There is a lot of going on at Arizona, which we haven't been talking about, that we might be talking about next week. I don't think Arizona is in the position that, I don't think Arizona is going to be, I don't think they're going to be committed. I don't think they're not going to beat the Sun Devils, in my humble opinion. I think the Sun Devils are a big favorite. So I get their rivalry. I get it. But I don't think Arizona is all there. And I think they're shutting it down, so to speak. So, but Houston hasn't shut it down. Maybe they can beat BYU. And of course, Kansas State can beat Iowa State. Colorado has 2 losses in the conference. Yes, they can get in. We're talking about 3 losses overall. We're talking about a Big 12 champion with 3 losses overall, not being shut out if Tulane wins the Big 12. If Tulane would go on and run the table. If Boise State would run the table. Colorado's 25. So even if Colorado runs the table and becomes the Big 12 champion, if Tulane runs the table, if Boise State runs the table, can Colorado jump over one of those conference champions? Right now, it's highly doubtful. I think that is what Heather Dinich is talking about. Well, that's what we're talking about, Stephen. We're talking about the rules say the 5 best conference champions, the 5 highest ranked conference champions. And right now, Boise State is ahead of the Big 12 champion. And the Big 12 champion is most likely going to be a little bit ahead of Tulane, even if Tulane runs the table. But the scenario in which a 3-loss Big 12 team, in other words, among BYU, Iowa State, Arizona State, those 3 schools, if 2 of those 3 lose this next week, and then one of those 2 schools win the Big 12 championship game, if a 3-loss Big 12 champion, or a 4-loss, or a West Virginia 5-loss champion, they're not going to make it in either, because if Tulane runs the table. So there is that outside chance that the Big 12, outside long shot chance that the Big 12 doesn't make the playoffs. I think they will. Colorado wins means the Big 12 is out. I would go if Kansas State wins, if Tulane runs the table, if Boise State runs the table, if Kansas State wins out. Well, Kansas State is an interesting one because they defeated Tulane straight up. But yeah, Colorado would be out. BYU and Iowa State, if they suffer a 3rd loss this week, but still won the Big 12 champion, woo, man, lots to consider.
From
Rock and Rant.
Rock and Rant, the floor is yours. Yes, sir. What happened to you? Hello?
Sorry.
Are you there?
Be good now. I am. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
Good. We just cut your first NIL deal for Verizon with our little commercial there.
Yes.
So that was pretty crazy. I think I don't know whether you got to hear Ward. I'm probably 5 minutes behind the show because I wanted to hear their interview with the commission, the chairman. So I'm not sure if you heard.
No, I can't. I don't listen. I can't really hear any of the show. So let me know what he said. What's going on?
Yeah. So one of the things they asked him about, and I heard some of your comments already, but so I've been going back and forth to try to keep up with both. But essentially, they asked him the committee's appetite for a team that's in. Use SMU to make the example easier. A team that's in the lower tier but currently in of the top 12, right? That's not like possibly going to get taken out of the thing by getting bumped by the 5th conference qualifier if they were in the 12th slot. How the committee looks at the conference championship games, and they specifically said we were thinking about this the last couple of weeks in terms of the SEC, but now we also have the ACC there. And what he basically said, and this is paraphrasing, and it's also a little bit of me and all of us who pay attention to this stuff being able to read between the lines, is that they look at those teams very carefully and value that they got into those games to begin with, and they certainly watch those games. I took it that SMU, let's say, my best case scenario, SMU and Miami get to the conference championship and SMU loses to Miami. I think unless it's 49-0, SMU is getting in. That's how I read it at that point. If you're in the top 10 like that, if you're in the if there's 2 teams from a conference and you're in the top 10 of the top 12, which is currently the reality, I don't think unless it's a blowout that team is going to get excluded. That's kind of what I read. And then he was very well prepared for the three-loss team question in the top 12 and their ability to potentially be ranked ahead of a top 2 team, a school with 2 losses. And he basically said that if you looked in the CFP era, even though we were only picking 4 teams, that there were 22 teams that had 3 losses that were ranked in the top 12 over the years past. So if you applied this model to the past rankings, there would have been 22 teams that would have been in the, I don't know whether they're top 11 or including the top 12 and therefore possibly at risk, but that was the number. So they're clearly thinking about it when you come into that meeting and you have that number right available and you're not even being asked during the interview and you just spout it off. So I think that they'll have no problem if it's the right school, which means SEC, of course, with 3 losses being in the top 12, they won't think twice about it. Now, there's a lot of stuff that would have to happen, but those were the sort of, for me, the 2 top takeaways. Besides, I know the other caller mentioned the whole Tulane scenario. In terms of like the Big 12, I actually have that open. It would take a lot, you're right, to get to the zone where a 3-loss Big 12 champion, a 3-loss team was the Big 12 champion, because you really need all 4 of the 2-loss teams to lose, essentially. But there are definitely scenarios. They're not necessarily in the likely scenarios. I think for one of the 5 and 3 teams, combined percentages to get in is around 3%. It's from one of the reports that I saw out there. So take it with a grain of salt, but they would need basically all the other 4 teams to lose, or at least 3 of the other 6 and 2 teams to lose to then have it. And then Kansas State is the one that has the best chance as a 3-loss team of making it to the title game, of doing that. But then again, the thing too is you're going to, depending upon if they apply that conference football, the conference championship loser mentality that they're talking about for the SEC and the ACC, depending upon whether they take it and do the same thing for the Big 12, the Big 12 is going to have a 3-team or a 3-loss or a 4-loss champion, right?
Yeah.
That's a fait accompli. So then it comes down to, are they going to apply that theoretical don't penalize you for getting to the championship game, not just within the 1 and 2 loss, the SEC, ACC world, but do they also apply it all the way downstream when it literally means whether a conference may or may not get in?
Yeah.
Right, because Big 12 is assured of having a 3-loss champion. I'm not assured, but has a very good possibility. Actually, I'm speaking out of turn there because a 2-loss team would still win. So, but never mind that last part. I babbled a little bit in the excitement of all of this, but there is a scenario still. It's just a 3% chance though for a 3-loss Big 12 champion.
Yeah. I mean, in theory, I don't mind 3-loss teams making the playoffs if it's the right, circumstance, right?
Yeah.
Now, I happen to think that that South Carolina Clemson game, have they been talking about that game at all?
They definitely talked a little bit about it, because with Clemson being the first one out, I didn't see the last 3 minutes to see if they had any last thoughts. Like, I think that game is going to take. If Clemson wins, I think they're going to wind up being fine, because I personally think there's going to be a couple more upsets this weekend, but that's not a guarantee.
Yeah.
South Carolina just has I guess it really comes down to the best recent win versus the fact that they're roadblocked by 2 of their own teams, right? Their own conference that they lost. Like, the head-to-head thing is really rough for them, just because if they win against Clemson, they're definitely better.
Yeah.
Playing better right now than Ole Miss or Alabama, but that head-to-head thing is pretty huge.
I got a feeling, Rocket Rant, that South Carolina being placed right behind Ole Miss and Alabama, I think that South Carolina should be feeling pretty good that they're not going to be roadblocked, right? I think they're close enough now that a win against Clemson is going to vault them over Alabama and Ole Miss, especially if it's really if they handle Clemson. I think South Carolina, because, head-to-head, it's important, right? It is important. But it's just one of, it's just one thing.
Yeah.
Right? And I think
and
the way go ahead.
I was going to say, to your point, they did mention that the chairman did mention they do pay attention to who's playing good now, right? So
yes.
It was around Tulane, but you could apply that to South Carolina. And the other thing I think they took from and I don't know how this will play out once it's all said and done. I think McElroy was focusing in on that. They're not, they're looking at strength of schedule, but it looks like they might be looking more at strength of record as one of the things where, it's a lot different if you look at things from a strength of record perspective, and one other metric of how well, how good people beat in those games. I don't remember what that specific metric is. I know it's on the ESPN website on the resume side, as well as, of course, the win-loss record. So, I think we all tend to focus on the strength of schedule conversation, and I think it's definitely a factor, but it seems to me it might be less of a factor than we all talk about.
Let me give you a scenario. How do I want to set this up, though? Who do I want winning that? Let's say South Carolina defeats Clemson 34-20. And SMU loses to California 20-17. Does South Carolina vault ahead of SMU?
They probably do.
Yeah.
I think they probably do, but all that, that just means that SMU would have to beat Miami, and then Miami probably would, assuming Miami beats Syracuse, which is a big assumption. But then SMU would have to beat Miami. But in that scenario, ACC probably still gets 2 with SMU as the champion and Miami as the at-large.
Miami's in a much better spot than SMU.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Whether it's fair or not, I understand the arguments on either side of the equation.
Yeah.
But
But them being 6, that's
6.
And then
leeway.
And then you got Tennessee. They are going to have to beat Vanderbilt, because Vanderbilt is going to play that game, baby. They're going to give it all they got, and they have got to beat. So if Tennessee loses and South Carolina wins, or Clemson wins, I know Tennessee's number 8, and that's fallen way back, but Tennessee has not been lighting it on fire either.
Right.
And if Indiana loses to Purdue, which they probably won't, but if they do, it's over for the Hoosiers at that point. So there are some 3 losses, jumping over 2-loss team scenarios out there.
Yeah, I would anybody be shocked if Notre Dame lost to USC, Boise lost to either Oregon State or UNLV, assuming UNLV wins this weekend, or Tennessee loses to Vandy? Like, I wouldn't be. Those would be mild surprises this season.
One of the most difficult scenarios for the committee is if Notre Dame loses to USC. Because
I don't think I've ever rooted for USC more in my life.
Because it's like, we know you're playing great, Irish. They put you at number 5. We know that. Everybody knows that. You've got 2 losses. You should be in as 10-2. But again, your loss was to Northern Illinois. If it's 2 losses, if it's too deep, but Northern Illinois in the MAC, that's one of your 2 losses. And you go back, and what is their biggest win? We know you're playing great. You passed the eye test, right? You are in Indiana, a little bit more souped up Indiana. Indiana has a much better loss, but you are more souped up. You're playing fantastic. We get it. But if you lose to USC and you have Northern Illinois in your loss column, boy, the committee, man, holy smokes.
And the other thing there, Greg, the other thing there is, if you're Indiana, you got luck of the draw on your conference schedule, right? Like, that was completely out of your control. Yeah. Notre Dame doesn't really have that excuse, right? They pick who they have to rotate amongst the ACC, so there's a few games that they play that are in rotation, but disproportionately their schedule is of their choosing, right? Because they're independent, so they're making agreements to who they're going to play. Whereas, for Indiana, there are 8 games that they got. Like, proportionally, they had less control over their schedule than Notre Dame did. Of course, you don't know that somebody's going to, this year they actually had Navy and Army a lot better than they normally would be, so it works in reverse too. But I don't know. I just want the carnage, and if Notre Dame is part of the carnage, that's even better. And 99% of us on the call and across America would be happy with that.
Yeah.
But we shall see.
Yeah. I mean, according to these rankings, Indiana's 10, Boise State's 11, Clemson's 12, Alabama's 13. According to the rankings, people just looking at the rankings, they're probably thinking, well, if Clemson loses and Alabama wins and there's a little bit of carnage ahead of them, like Tennessee loses to Vanderbilt, Alabama gets in. I don't see it that way. I got South Carolina jumping over Alabama, even though they lost to Alabama.
That would be worth it just to tune in to Paul Feinbaum.
I tell you what, if Alabama gets into this, the way they looked against Oklahoma, that was an absolute train wreck. The way they looked against Vanderbilt was an absolute train wreck. If they somehow get into this thing, holy smokes.
Unreal, right?
Yeah.
I still call like there's gonna, and one of them could be Miami when it's all said and done, but I still think there's gonna be 3 possible. We had non-expected results this coming weekend that throw all of this into another reference before we even get to the conference championship game weekend. But we'll see.
What time does Miami play? They play 3:30 Eastern time at Syracuse.
Correct.
Yeah, that's such a huge game, Rock and Rant. Come on, man. If you win that game, you have an opportunity to win the ACC championship and get a top 4 seed. If you win that game, and if you lose the ACC championship game, you're going to be still spending the first week of the playoffs playing, right? So if you beat the Orange, then everything is set in front of you. Everything is gravy. Everything is beautiful for the program. Beat the Orange, Rock and Rant. Beat the Orange.
I'm going to call Cam Ward right now and make sure it happens.
Got it. Yeah, got it. And tell him that it wasn't me who was talking about the size of his hands early in the season.
Hey, the motivation of telling him that you picked NC State to win it did wonders, so I might hold that back a little bit. But I'll get off. I've been babbling too long. Let everybody else get a shot at you.
Appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Be good, Greg.
Got it. Great call.
Call from
BJ.
BJ, can you just hold one moment?
Yes, sir.
I just want to get to, I got a super chat here that just came in. Will J, I'm going to take your comment first. I hope Ole Miss gets in. They play everybody tough. They won't disappoint in the playoffs. Ole Miss, disappointed. Ole Miss is as soft of an SC. This 2024 Ole Miss team is as finesse and least physical SEC team that I have seen in the modern age of the SEC. If Ole Miss plays Notre Dame in South Bend, touchdown Jesus. If Ole Miss goes into Happy Valley in Penn State, if Ole Miss has to go to Oregon under the shoe at Ohio, Ole Miss is going to get their doors blown out. I don't want to see Ole Miss in the playoffs. I think that would be one hell of a train wreck. But maybe I don't think they're going to make it in. I think they've blown their chance. Thank you, Will J, for that comment. John Teal, a USC win would just be 2 losses for Notre Dame. It would be 2 losses to unranked opponents and no conference championships. You're fired. John Teal, thank you for the super chat. I think most of the people in the PATC family would agree with you, John Till. would agree with you. And I think USC's got a little, they're going to give Notre Dame a run. BJ, thanks for your patience once again. The floor is yours.
Oh, no worries, Greg. As always, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. Few things. First is the rankings kind of played out the way I thought they were going to play out. I think when we talked last, I mentioned, having those are going to be, big stadiums, big brands hosting. And as I look at the rankings, I try to be unbiased and look at it from a point of view where it's I think it's reality, right? And the reality, from my opinion, right, is that 8 of the slots are already filled, unless there's like crazy work. Penn State, Indiana, or say Tennessee, right? Unless they, lose their bearings against Vanderbilt, safe, right? And the notion that if you make it to the conference championship, you shouldn't get bumped down. I don't believe in that notion, because every time you take the field, it's a risk. Because if I can play a game and I can jump up spaces, I should be able to play a game and lose spot. That's just the risk. I think the system is flawed, but if you play in the conference tournament and you play horribly, I think there should be consequences for it, right? That's just my opinion. People disagree with it, but I just think if you play and you get, just knocked out the ballpark, you should lose. I think that's what happened with Ohio State and Wisconsin years ago, when the Big 12 was playing footsies on, they wanted to go with co-champions. And Ohio State jumped them both because Ohio State looked like world beaters in that game. And also, when I look at the rankings and how the CFP kind of slotted these guys, I think the eye test, like you mentioned before, I think that plays a huge, huge component. I think they look at teams, when the teams are playing their best, how do they look? I think that's why Colorado was people liked them, because when they were playing their best, their offense looked explosive, more so than any other unit in the Big 12. And we can disagree, but I think the eye test plays a big part. And lastly, I'll just say this when it comes to, and I want your opinion, when it comes to, I don't want to say people are complaining, but I hear a lot of complaining. And the CFP is a TV product. They don't care how many games you lost or anything. They're going to put, I think last year, they said their job is to put the best teams in the tournament. You may disagree with their best teams, but their best teams to them may be ratings. Who the fuck? I mean, who knows at this point? But either way, I think they got the teams right for the most part. And you can't complain when you have 3 losses. You can't, you had 3 opportunities to win, you lost. But as always, Greg, thanks for allowing me to speak on your platform.
Appreciate it.
And I'm pretty sure you're going to disagree with me, but I'm ready to hear your point of view on that.
No, I'm okay with what you said. Thank you, BJ. Appreciate the call, man.
Well, thank you.
You got it. Okay, this is one of these examples where I have to be careful, because people don't watch the show every day. So if I don't use all the words to explain something, then people miss the meaning of it. But then again, if I go over it over and over and over again, people say, Greg, you keep repeating yourself. And I say, well, we got new people joining us all the time. So I can't win either way. Let me explain something on Ole Miss.
Call from
Tristan Fives.
Tristan, can you hold on for 1 second, please?
Yes.
I appreciate it. This is what I mean by Ole Miss. Dave Chauncey, Ole Miss is not soft. You watch them, best defensive line in college football. Ole Miss should be ranked ahead of Alabama. What's the other one? It's funny when someone calls an SEC team soft, but turns around and says Notre Dame proved themselves. When the season is over, Texas A&M is like 21, 23 in the rankings. Notre Dame will play no-ranked teams, which is true. Okay. And Nolan, the great defensive tackle we talked about him on the show. So let me be more specific. Ole Miss's offense is unbelievably soft. It was last year. It is this year. They literally, that's why they're giving the ball to that big old Haas in the backfield, because they can't get a first down giving it to a running back. They couldn't run the ball last year. Why do you think Quinshon Judkins left Ole Miss? Of course, he went to the Buckeyes with a whole lot of money. Look at Quinshon Judkins' rushing per average when he was a freshman. And then look at what happened last year at Ole Miss. When they gave him the football, he was an immediately tackled. Every yard that Judkins got last year at Ole Miss was because of him. They couldn't run it. We talked about it all last year. This year, it's the same thing. You see what they did on Saturday? You see what they did on Saturday? They couldn't even hand the ball off to a running back on his short yardage. That's what I mean by soft. I'm not talking about the defense. And I'll be more specific going forward. But this is the problem that Ole Miss has had. A lot of talent, a lot of juice on the outside, a lot of weapons, great quarterback. I love the coach. I do love Lane. I love him. I love the coach, but they are incredibly soft on the offensive side of the ball. And you know, there's another SEC team that was soft on the offensive side of the ball. It was LSU. This is the softest they've ever been on the offensive side of the ball. They had to put everything on Nussmeier and those receivers. I talk about how Gophers, my beloved Gophers, this is the softest they've been on the offensive side of the ball. They actually came a finesse team this year. It was strange. So, yes, Ole Miss was absolutely soft on the offensive side of the ball. I am going to say that. Now, next year, hopefully it changes at Ole Miss. Go ahead, sir. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks for taking my call.
You bet.
So, hey, listen, we've got these rankings, and we're going to have them again next week, and then we're going to have them again after the conference championship games. And it seems to me that every single week they get something wrong. I mean, you know, there's bias baked into the process. And this is why I continue to say I want AQs. I don't like the bias, you know, and people, you know, the strength of schedule argument is completely skewed by the preseason rankings, which are based on literally nothing other than, you know, projecting how you think a team might do. It's just opinion. And so, you know, ESPN has profound influence over the whole process. They're trying to get, I mean, you can see them kind of like playing little games here and there with Alabama, trying to leave little scenarios in play where they might squeak into the playoff. And it's ridiculous. What you said is correct. I mean, they really did look dreadful last week. They have no business being in the discussion. And so the only solution to these problems, in my opinion, are the AQs. And I know not everyone likes the AQs. I get it. But, you know, I hate polls and I hate committees worse than I hate AQs. And that's why I advocate for it.
Okay.
So I agree with your point about Ole Miss being soft. I agree that LSU is soft. And, They Ole Miss probably just missed getting in. And Greg, I was going to mention to you, there was been so much to talk about every weekend. We've had so many incredible games. I never got around to pointing out to you, and I did intend to talk about it, that South Carolina looked really good.
Yep.
During the season, especially in the second half of the season.
Yes. Yep.
And, they had a very questionable call go against them in the LSU game that probably changed the outcome of the game. They might be a 2-loss team right now if that call gets called correctly. So,
yeah. Yes, I agree.
I kind of feel like if they continue to play it the same, if they give a convincing victory over Clemson, I feel like they deserve a shot to get in. And not just because they're in the SEC, But, Greg, it's fun to debate it. Everyone's got their opinions. And I don't get mad at anyone for having an opinion because my opinions are nothing more than my own opinions.
Yeah, we're just having fun.
Fact.
Yep.
So listen, a quick comment real quick. North Carolina, they're replacing Mac Brown. Greg, this is a very difficult situation for them. And I'm talking about like the big picture philosophical approach to their athletic department. I think if they hire a P2 head coach to replace Mac Brown, that probably is a sign that they are in fact going to be in the P2 soon. I don't think a coach,
or a sign that there's going to be an influx of cash coming. Either way, yep.
Well, it could be the cash. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right that it could be. But you're talking about through private equity, though, right?
Or yes, or something. Else. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, See, Greg, they have a heart. They have to figure out what they want to be. Okay? There's a huge percentage of fans that just want to stay in the ACC. There's a huge percentage of fans that want to go to the Big Ten. And there's a huge percentage of people that want to go to the SEC. And I don't understand what in the world they're going to do that's going to make everyone happy. They built their academic reputation on being a basketball blue blood and having a lot of very good Olympic sports, right? That's what they're known for. There's a segment of the fan base that wants to be good in football. I understand that too. But, they've got a small stadium, Greg. They're going to be at a revenue disadvantage in football, right? Because Keenan's not that big. And, that makes a big difference over the course of a season. If some team can seat 80, 90, 100,000 and they can only seat 55, that's just difficult. So it's hard to compete at that level. So I'm going to be very interested to see what decisions get made there just on a philosophical level. Like, what is it that they want to be? And I don't know. I feel like there's still a lot of turmoil in there, in their AD, in their athletic department, and then as well as within the school. I don't know if they've made any firm decisions about what they want to do.
Yep. Great comment.
So, hey, listen, exciting stuff.
Yep.
I look forward to the next couple of weekends. I hope no one gets ripped off this year, but I'm not confident that will happen. Yep. So, hey, keep up the good work, Greg.
Beautiful call. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, a little bit more Ole Miss talk, and then we're going to go off the Ole Miss talk. Wow, Ole Miss, Will J. Ole Miss was 10-2 last year and beat Penn State by 30 points. If that sucks, what do you think of any Big Ten school? Indiana South.
Call from
John Grove.
John Grove, can you hold on for a moment, please?
Of course.
Appreciate it. I never said Ole Miss sucks. I said they were soft on offense. There's a big difference there. Did not say that Ole Miss sucked. So again, Dave Chauncey, they ran over Georgia, handled the elite defensive line in South Carolina. Ole Miss, when they defeated Georgia 28-10, Jackson Dart ran for 50 yards, had a long of 28. Their running backs were shut down in that game. Did any of you guys actually watch Ole Miss last week? Have you watched them all year long? I think saying that Ole Miss has an incredibly soft offense where they have to do gimmick plays at 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1, and they rarely ever work. I mean, Ole Miss's own beat writers are saying they're incredibly soft. That's what the pitchforks are out at Ole Miss. Of all the things that this is the least controversial thing I've ever said, is Ole Miss's offense is soft. My goodness. Anyways, caller, the floor is yours. Go ahead, sir.
How are you doing, Mr. Flugar?
I'm doing pretty good.
That's great to hear. Well, I apologize for kind of making some noises in the background if I was.
No problem.
I was getting some fresh ice cream from Dairy Queen, which I heard is very popular up in Minnesota as well. So,
yes, it is.
That and Culver's.
Culver's is the only Wisconsin thing that is popular in Minnesota. By the way, Culver's gets their fish from the Lake of the Woods in Minnesota. They get their walleyes from Minnesota, northern Minnesota, Lake of the Woods. That's where Culver's gets their delicious walleye that they serve every Easter, in spring. But go ahead, sir.
Well, inspiration comes from somewhere, Greg. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
But the rankings reveal really told me tonight that we're looking at the committee, instead of valuing the wins and the overall strength of the schedule, they're just looking at it based on the record at this point. Because you want to tell me, and everybody's been talking about kind of Indiana's light schedule, Penn State's light schedule, even Texas's light schedule to a certain degree. But then people keep bringing up the conversation about Boise State, about playing several of these Mountain West teams, while the Big 12 has to constantly go through each other while playing one Power 5 team as well. And it just, at this point, they're even considering putting Tulane over Arizona State. I'm just like thinking to myself, why does the Big 12 need to continue going through the path of, all right, well, why do we just need to schedule a Power 5 team or two to kind of bolster our resume and to bolster our strength of schedule, when we could just kind of follow the same route as several of these teams and schedule one or two group of 5 teams and just play it based on that while continue to go through the gauntlet that is the Big 12, or even because you had an early live show today, right?
What was that last few words?
You had an early live show kind of going through that Ross Dillinger article as well.
Yes, yeah.
And included Chris Kleiman saying, like, hey, why should we continue playing 9 games when we should just go to 8 games and add an extra non-conference team to again, just to kind of improve on my record, have a road conference game for several of these Big 12 teams, and then chances are you have a chance to finish 10-2 and even be an at-large bid in the college football playoff. And even then, the SEC bias is clearly showing tonight with Alabama. I mean, it shouldn't even be in consideration right now. Same goes for Ole Miss, but they're 13 of 14. I just don't understand why they're feeling the need to not only they're putting the value in, what's the best way of putting it? They're putting the value in wins for certain teams, but they're also putting the strength of a record in the SEC, or like the strength of schedule towards the SEC teams towards the bottom, and overall it's just kind of screwing the Big 12.
Yeah.
And I'm honestly not sure why they're tending to use the approach for one, but they're not using the approach for another, and vice versa. I don't understand their logic in a way.
Yeah, well, it's not consistent. I don't happen to believe that there is a chance for a Tulane team that runs the table going to be ahead of Arizona State that runs the table. I don't think an 11-2 Tulane, an American Athletic Conference champion, is going to be ahead of an 11-2 Big 12 champion in Arizona State. So I don't think that is going to be a problem.
Well, I'll even move a needle further, Greg, because Tulane lost to K-State in week 2 when K-State was still a top 25 team. Now they're back to being a top 25 team.
Yeah.
They play Iowa State. Iowa State is only one spot behind Tulane.
Yeah.
And let's say Iowa State cruises to a big-time win on Saturday night over K-State. I think you would have to be stupid to continue pushing Tulane ahead of even Arizona State or Iowa State for that matter. It's just the math is not mathing. Tulane, they've looked better throughout the season, but again, their strength of schedule. I mean, they're beating AAC teams, and they weren't able to beat the marquee non-conference opponents. Really, their best win so far is against Navy and maybe Memphis this upcoming Thursday. But, I mean, when you just look at several of these teams, Arizona State already beat BYU. They beat K-State on the road in Manhattan. And then Iowa State is also up there kind of lurking as well. So I honestly don't know. The priorities are just kind of opposite. And I don't know. I think not only should the Big 12 now be considering the idea of even playing 8 conference games, but maybe even cutting off several Power 5 games in the future. Because I was looking at K-State's 2025 schedule. They play out Arizona as a non-conference game, and I'm just thinking to myself, should the Big 12 cancel the K-State-Arizona game 2025 and then have those two teams play several more cupcake group of 5 schools just to kind of boost their record? I don't know. I'm just kind of going through all the scenarios, but
Yeah.
it's frustrating. It's frustrating.
Yeah. All right, man. I appreciate the call. I get it. No, I get the frustration. No question about it. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. No worries. Yeah, absolutely. Have a good one, Greg. Keep up the great work, and God bless. Have a good
You
night.
too. Call again, sir. Thank you much. Dave Chauncey, what's the point of playing a tough schedule? Just play Indiana's schedule and beat one decent team in Michigan and don't get beat by 40 and you are in. Pete Thamel about Indiana, CFP committee chair Ward Manuel. We were impressed with some of the things Indiana did. They dropped 5 spots. We felt their body of work was strong enough to remain in the top 10. Again, we've talked about it here. People talking about Indiana's schedule. They're not going to have that schedule next year. They took advantage of the schedule that they had this year, and they weren't just squeaking by. They were playing dominant football, and so that is that's the point. It's hard to win. It's hard to go 11-1 no matter what record you got. But again, Indiana, they were given the Big Ten schedule that they had, and they completely dominated. Texas, there are other programs out there that have gotten the schedule that other teams in the conference are saying, look, their schedule is not as tough as ours. When you don't have divisions, when you have unbalanced scheduling, and there are teams on your schedule that you thought were going to be great, but they're not. Some teams that you thought weren't going to be good at all are really good this year. All you can do is play the teams ahead of them. And again, the Big Ten plays 9 conference games. And of course, like Alabama, right? They're playing against Oklahoma. Boy, they're not playing against a very good team, Oklahoma. Well, look what happened to Alabama. They got absolutely whooped by Oklahoma. Didn't even score a touchdown against Oklahoma. Those are the games that should drop you. Absolutely drop you. And it barely even touched Alabama. And then strength of schedule. Yeah, I mean, the strength of schedule thing. Tom Fornelli had a great piece on CBS. Literally, the strength of schedule graphics that you see, the difference between 30 and 80 is like this. It's like this. Very little difference. It's just you rank them, and it's an issue. It's a metric. It's absolutely a metric, but it's only one. It's only one metric. It's an important one, but it's not everything. Indiana went from 103, 108, now they're 51. Teams drop, they go up, they drop, they go up. It's important, but not everything can be decided by a number that says strength of schedule. And it also depends on when you play them, injuries, all that is very difficult to compute. So, yeah, Indiana's like 51 suddenly. So, anyways, we are going to close it up. This is our second live show of the day. We've been on the air for 4 hours today on a Tuesday, November 26th. We appreciate you all coming on in. The super chat that we got, John Teal, thank you so much. MBM, thank you for the 10 gifted memberships. Holy smokes. Thank you for your incredible generosity. Thank you, John Teal. Appreciate the phone calls. Appreciate you all coming on in. Tomorrow, I love you guys. Tomorrow, we're going to be doing our picks against the spread. Greg the Gold, Greg the Believer showed up last week. 6-3. I've taken a 3-game lead against you guys. So tomorrow we're going to be doing our picks against the spread. Talking about the college football games coming up ahead. More information on the North Carolina vacancy. Buckle up, brace for impact. Until tomorrow, from all of us at College Footballs, peek around the corner to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.